Hello, so this video is a review of Amazon Fire TV, and really I'm going to be comparing it to the other Android TV dongles out there, the other smart players that add a smart functionality to your television. So a couple of days ago, my Android TV dongle, which I've been using for 2 years, stopped working. So this is a Clastor Rockchip RK3066 Android dongle, just a sort of generic Chinese thing you can buy. It says model UG02 on it, dual core mini PC. I've been using this for 2 years, absolutely brilliant, until a couple of days ago when it got stuck on the boot screen. Now, it's crashed quite frequently, or infrequently actually, but it does crash, usually. And you just unplug it and plug it in again, and it starts working again. But this time was different, and it got stuck on the bootloader. Unplugging it, plugging it back in, didn't work. I tried to reflash it, didn't work. Tried to short the pins on it to force it into accepting the new ROM, didn't work. So it's completely knackered now, which is a real shame because I've used this all the time, and it's just all the functionality is just perfect. And I'd looked previously on the internet to see if I could replace this, because this is only dual core. And I bought the same sort of thing, but with a quad core processor, and the audio had been laggy, so there'd been a sort of fraction of a second delay in the audio in things like Netflix, which is it's actually really off-putting. And the Wi-Fi on the quad-core one I bought was naff as well, so it would only download very slowly, and so things like Netflix were constantly buffering. So I'd looked around, and really I was a bit worried about the chances of this breaking, because there didn't seem to be anything that could replace it. So there are a number of products available, things like Now TV and the Amazon Fire and Chromecast and these Roku things, I think they're called, which is basically like a more advanced Now TV, or rather a Now TV is a less advanced version of these other things, Roku or something they're called, I can't remember. But each time I looked at those, it never really jumped out at me as being a direct replacement for this. They always missed something. So the first thing is USB connectivity. This Android dongle has a USB port which you can plug a hard drive into. You can plug a wireless keyboard into. It's just really good. So although when I bought this it was not 1080p, I flashed it so that it was. And I thought that Netflix was running at 1080p. I'm still not convinced it wasn't, but I've heard that actually Netflix stop a lot of these third-party devices from running at full HD. And what you'll notice is that things like Now TV aren't actually full 1080p. So that kind of rules out Now TV as a direct replacement for this device. And Netflix itself isn't even available on Now TV. And then there's the biggest problem of all, which actually this one doesn't help with either, and that's 4OD, which is now called All4, and ITV Player. So they don't work on this. I think they may have worked briefly, maybe a year and a half ago. But a lot of the devices you get, including Amazon Fire, they don't have apps for 4OD and ITV Player. And kind of in a cruel twist, the Now TV box does. So actually I do own a Now TV box, and I use it purely for watching ITV Player and 4OD. I suppose the only other things I use this for were streaming from a network drive which I have plugged into an Apple Airport Extreme. But really YouTube, Netflix, and using those flawlessly and streaming from a drive is what I want to be able to do. But there is also something very usable about this, because it's effectively turns your TV into a huge tablet, and all the touchscreen functions work. But obviously you have to use a wireless keyboard with a mouse pad on it to be able to use those touchscreen features. It's just really usable. Now, you might think, well, why don't I screencast or mirror my like iPhone or something onto my TV? But it's just kind of like I've never really got on with iPads. I just don't want to do that. I much prefer having a separate computer that I can access using a keyboard and mouse. So looking at the available options for replacement smart TVs, I came across the Amazon Fire TV, which is about £80. So it's quite expensive because I think the Apple TV, which incidentally doesn't have a USB port, which is why it's no good for me, is like £50, which is a lot cheaper. And the Now TV box you can pick up for about £10. So the Amazon Fire one is pretty expensive, but it does have a Netflix app, it does have a YouTube app, it does have a USB port. So, and I've also read that it has this XBMC thing, which allows you to stream stuff, or you can install XBMC in the form of this program called Kodi, which allows you to stream things from a network server. So that's kind of perfect for me. So with that in mind, I went out and bought one. I'd like to share with you some of the plus points and negative points of the Amazon Fire TV box. So let's start with the plus points. So it is 1080p and the picture quality appears to be excellent. The device itself is really well built. It looks kind of like something from the future, or at least it looks like an Apple product, really, like a black Apple product. Kind of really solidly built and compact. Wi-Fi seems to work all right, seems pretty fast. Occasionally the quality of the Netflix streaming drops, but I'm experimenting with moving the box around into kind of more appropriate places because I have this problem anyway, to be honest, with my Wi-Fi dongle on my PC. So it's not really the Amazon box's fault. It's clearly working properly. And it's got Netflix, YouTube, and Spotify, which is good. It does have access to XBMC, so you can stream from a network server. It has a USB port, so you can plug in a USB 3 thumb drive to allow you to have more space to save programs and have data on, or you can plug in something like a wireless keyboard and mouse. And I think one of the other cool features is I bought a number of CDs and MP3s from Amazon over the years, and they've just automatically appeared in the music section on the Fire TV interface. So that's pretty cool. So now on to some of the bad points. I said you can install like Kodi, and you can even install things like Firefox, but it's a real hassle. You're obviously not meant to actually be able to install these additional Android apps. There is a thing for kind of installing these Fire TV compatible apps that have, I guess, been selected by Amazon. But if you want to install things like Firefox, you have to do this thing called side loading, which isn't that complicated, but it's a bit of a hassle. And you have to, for example, on my Mac, use the terminal and type this command to transfer these APK files manually over to the device, and then you have to access them in a funny way. So you have to go to like the settings and then click on like manage installed applications and then launch. It's a hassle, but you can do it. Not all apps are compatible, but Firefox and things are, so that's pretty good. I tried to get an old version of the YouTube app working, but couldn't, and I'll explain why I tried to do that in a minute. Which leads me on to my next point, which is, why isn't there internet access on the Fire TV? Why do I have to sideload Firefox to be able to do it? That seems a bit weird. Unlike this device, which is basically a touchscreen tablet on your television, the Fire TV doesn't have any touchscreen stuff built into it. So even though I can move the cursor around on a lot of the applications, they don't respond to clicking, which is actually majorly frustrating. And that is a big problem for their built-in YouTube app, which incidentally isn't compatible with a keyboard either. So when you want to search for things on YouTube, you have to use your the up and down keys and enter key, or the remote that comes with the Fire TV, to manually type out each letter, which is a real pain in the arse, and I don't see why it should do that. It just doesn't seem right to me, which is why I tried to install another YouTube app, another version of the YouTube app, but it didn't work. There's also no volume control, which I've heard is something to do with the fact that it's got optical out on it, but it seems weird for me. This had volume control, and so I just used to use the volume control keys on the keyboard, and it would work flawlessly. So I'm getting used to having my remote with me, TV remote, to change the volume, but you know, it's just a shame that it doesn't have its own volume control. There is a funny voice search feature on the Amazon Fire TV, which people seem to like, but it's kind of pointless for me because it only returns things in the Amazon movie store or in Amazon products. So it doesn't search Netflix, doesn't search your like server or whatever. So it's a bit like a sort of dumb robot that only knows that Amazon exists. And there's kind of two small things with it. Bearing in mind that it costs £80, it doesn't actually come with an HDMI cable, which I thought was a bit stingy. And also the power cable is like that long. So you have to have a power outlet very close to your device, which I think is a bit stingy as well. So on balance, the Amazon Fire TV is probably the best of a bad bunch. And hopefully, as time passes, Amazon will add some of the features that I'm talking about. So namely, the YouTube app should work with a keyboard. You should be able to type and search. And maybe things like 4OD and ITV Player will eventually be added as apps that you can use. And it would be nice also if it was easier to sideload apps onto your device. And if they fix those things, which obviously technically probably aren't that difficult, I should think these things are licensing issues more than limited by computer programming. If they could fix those things, it would be a spectacular device because it is fast and it is attractive and it is, on the whole, easy to use. So I do feel like I've taken a little bit of a step back, that's my dog, a little bit of a step back with this device in terms of some of the functionality, but in terms of quality and speed, the Amazon Fire TV is definitely a recommended replacement to this. So thanks for watching this video, and if you've got any questions about the Amazon Fire TV or these cheap devices, or Now TV, which I also own, then please leave a comment below and I will respond to you. Cheers.